Hello everyone, my name is Bianca and I will be your trainer today. Today's training will be on navigating customer service, building soft skills to create positive interactions. After this training, you should be able to guide a conversation, demonstrate flexibility, and outline the steps needed to set clear boundaries with difficult callers. A word about motivational interviewing. Although we are not clinicians or case managers, many of the principles of motivational interviewing can be used across many disciplines. It is non-confrontational, collaborative, supportive, and most of all requires trust that individuals can solve their own problems. This training takes basic principles of motivational interviewing and relates them to our work at 2-in-1. Our mission is to use these techniques without losing focus on the purpose of our role. So let's first talk about guiding conversations and being the co-pilot for your callers. In each interaction with clients, remember that between the two of you, you are the trained professional with experience with these situations. For many clients, this is their first time, or at least this is the first time that they recognize that this is a problem. So you're going to face uncertainty and apprehension. Being a professional requires listening, assessing, and guiding the client to the best referral. So let's start with listening. Listening goes beyond just discovering how much a utility bill is. Listening attentively will offer a glimpse into the life of that client as a person, not as another phone number in the queue. So you may have 30 utility calls in a day, right? But if you're truly listening to each person, then you know that even though there are 30 utility calls, there are 30 unique utility calls. There are 30 different situations and 30 different bills and 30 different stories. By treating all clients with respect, a level of trust can be built, which decreases defensiveness. Let's just provide some basic tips on listening and actively listening. So you want to pay attention. Also, avoid distracting factors, such as your cell phone, or Facebook, or your coworkers, or the TV. You want to just stay tuned to what they're talking about. You also want to stay present. You don't want to try not to think about the future, what you're going to eat for dinner. Stay present. Listen to that individual talk. Also, ask questions for clarification and acknowledge a person's feelings. Listening requires sympathy, empathy, and compassion. Or it can. Let's talk about the difference between the three. So sympathy is feeling hurt or feeling sorry for another person's situation, right? A little bit of sympathy is okay, but too much sympathy may give the feeling of feeling pity. And pitying an individual's situation really does disempower that person, and it really fuels a disconnect. Whereas empathy is walking in another person's shoes. So, for example, letting the caller know that you understand their situation. Maybe you had a similar experience. Just letting them know that you don't feel sorry for them, but you truly understand what they're going through. And then compassion is acting on your feelings and your empathy, right? So, for example, if a caller is getting the runaround and they're unable to get assistance, offering to follow back up with them or to advocate on their behalf is compassion, because you're showing that you care. You're going that extra mile. So I did give you some examples of empathy and compassion, but how would difficult conversations change if these were included? Well, that's easy. If someone is upset and you had absolutely no compassion or empathy, you may upset the caller even more. But adding empathy and compassion can smooth the conversation, can make the conversation easier to manage. And you're building trust. So the more and more you build trust, the more and more that person opens up to you. And that's what we truly want. We want the person on the other line to open up to us and trust us and give us all the information that we need to help them help themselves. So let's go ahead and look at the scenario. So Bob calls 211 because his power was cut off this morning. He's rambling about a job he lost and trying to make an effort, but later seems to slip up and say this is how he always does his bill. Wait 3 months and get an agency to pay it. How would you offer assistance to Bob? So go ahead and pause this and read over the choices. All right, so the right answer would be D. Discuss with him other options for making sure his money can cover his own bill, but still give him agency information. And the reason why we didn't choose A through C is because there's a lack of compassion and empathy, and even a little bit of judginess in a few of those choices as well. So here's a role play that we can go over right quick. So the caller is emotional about a father's recent death. They know they never helped their father during his life and did not like him very much. But now that he's gone, they're finding themselves in a situation of managing his household bills, all of which are past due. They hate him and what he's left them with. So how would you listen? So how would you listen to this client with empathy, acceptance, optimism, and compassion? So you may say, sounds like you're going through a difficult time. I'm really sorry that you have to take on an additional bill. Hopefully we can help you with getting this assistance. There are tons of organizations out there that may be able to help you. Or you might even want to say, I'm sorry for your loss. Or my condolences to you and your family. Let's see if we can get some help with these bills. I know this might be difficult for you. So those are just a few phrases that you might mention. So you want to remain, so the next step is assessing. So you want to remain forward thinking with your client. The past is already finished. Focus on what they can do from here forward. This can include statements such as, I'm glad you called to deal with this issue. Ease your natural want to fix or judge the client. Look at their situation through their lens, not your own. And learn about your client as an individual and encourage them to continue their pursuit to remedy their own situation. What are ways you can make the client not feel judged and look forward with them? Just clarify. So things happen. So just let them know that this happens, right? Situations happen. And the fact is that they're taking those steps to fix their problem. And that's what matters. How would you feel by being seen as a guiding light for someone else? I would feel pretty great about it, and I have felt pretty great about being a guiding light and providing them with resources and providing compassion and empathy and support and empowering them to reach out for help. So for me, it feels very good, and I'm sure it will for you guys once you guys start taking calls. So here's the scenario. Rita never seems to get things right. Her rent is due, and she doesn't have the money to pay for it. Overwhelmed by her situation, she continues to state she just can't go through this again, meaning being evicted. How can you help assess Rita's situation without dwelling on the past? So A, explain to Rita that she needs to find a more solid solution to avoid being evicted again in the future. B, tell Rita These things happen and continue forward together with solutions. C. Explain that sometimes even the best intentions aren't the right choice. Perhaps she doesn't have the means to help herself at all. And D. Let Rita know that evictions are horrible and she needs to consider some major life changes to avoid this in the future. Now go ahead and pause this and think about maybe which choice is the best choice. All right, well, I would say B. Tell Rita these things happen and continue forward together with solutions, because you are helping her help herself, and you're not judging her situation. All right, and then here's a role play. The caller says they've been down this road before, and their power was cut off at the last place where they were living. Back then, they moved to another place to get away from the bill in their partner's name. But now, they're right back where they were before, facing a disconnected notice and not having any money to pay the power bill. How would you assess what the caller is going through without drifting into their past missteps? Well, you may want to say, it's okay. It's not a problem. This is why we have resources in our database. Hopefully we can find some resources. And I'm glad you're calling us and trying to get your bill paid. So really just encourage them and say thank you for calling us. And let them know that we are glad that they're taking steps to make those changes. All right, and then number 3, guiding. You want to create an exchange that is even and treat the client as an equal. So to guide a client, join with them as they could become rather than as they once were. See the potential in your client. Remember, you don't have to make change happen. You can't anyway. The key is to consider that between you and the client, you are not wrestling, you are dancing. So let's give an example of an interaction where the client is treated like a person capable of resolving their own problem. So say, for instance, someone has a utility bill and they're needing assistance with their utility bill. Instead of just saying, okay, these are the resources, you may want to offer them. Like, would you like this organization? You may also say, for instance, you have someone on the other line that may need to pay their utility and their rent. So you can ask them, well, would you like information on your utility, your rent, or your both, or both? And then therefore they're making those choices for themselves. And I'm not automatically assuming that they want one resource over the other. So really guiding is asking questions and listening and understanding the caller's point of view. So here goes a scenario. Danielle doesn't know where to turn. She needs help coming up with money to pay her rent, electric, and doesn't have enough food in the house to feed her 3 children. It's like life is trying to attack her and she feels unable to make anything work for her family. How can you guide Danielle so she feels empowered and can make a choice? So A, tell her she cannot possibly deal with all of her problems at once. She needs to focus her energy on one concern at a time. B, explain that she's in over her head and may always need help, especially with little ones in the home. C, ask Danielle where she thinks her energy needs to go first. And D, offer all possible resources to Danielle for her needs and wish her well. So I would say C, ask Danielle where she thinks her energy needs to go first. You don't want to necessarily do D, because offering all possible resources may overwhelm her even more. And because Danielle doesn't know where to turn first and she already seems overwhelmed, you definitely don't want to overwhelm her. Now, Danielle could easily say, I want all resources, right? And then we would provide those resources for her. We are giving her the chance to make those decisions. All right, and here's the role play. George just got out of jail and needs to establish a new life. They need housing and food, but are not willing to tell anyone else how desperate they are for help. They'd rather live on the street than admit they can make it on their own as a citizen. How would you help guide a client in a way that treats them as an equal with potential to solve their own problems? So I may say, George, it's okay. I definitely understand that reaching out to organizations or to friends and family may be difficult. And that's okay. We all go through these troubles. However, there are organizations out here that can help you and are here particularly just to help people in your situation. So you can just let them know that there are organizations out here that people have received assistance in the past and that it's okay to feel that way. And then if George feels as if that is good enough and that he wants those resources, then that's okay. But if George wants to decline the resources, then that's also okay. We have to let George do what he wants to do. But we can inform him of the resources or the potential resources out there in his area. All right, now let's talk about being flexible with clients. Allow calls to shift outside of a typical call structure. So maybe when you're doing your call opening, the caller starts to vent. You may just want to go with the flow. You don't actually have to do your call opening just right there. You want to just go ahead and throw that call structure out the window for a second and just listen to the caller. Also, you want to alternate from guiding and following. Sometimes you direct and sometimes they do. Calls can go any possible way. Go with the flow of the call. Resisting can lead to undue stress. Don't fast forward. Stay actively listening within the conversation and adapt and respond accordingly. Remember, these are not just problems and not just your problems to solve. You don't have to come up with the best answers. Give choices, not directives. How would remaining flexible in a call keep a scenario from escalating? Well, that's simple. If you're inflexible and you're trying to get the caller to go with your structure, then it's likely that the caller is going to bump heads. They're going to think that you're being rude rather than just trying to get the information filled out. Remember, they don't see our protocol. They don't see our screen. All they can do is hear what we're saying. So they're seeing things in a different light. So if it sounds like you're rushing them, then they may feel defensive and it may end up escalating the call. How might you benefit from not being emotionally invested in each call? Well, that's easy. When you get off the phone, you won't feel stressed out from having a caller yell at you. It will be easy to transition from one caller to the next. So there's many benefits to not allowing a call to stress you out. When and how to set boundaries. Expect to see the normal cost of business for a contact center. Our clients contact us because they're stressed, scared, frustrated, or out of solutions. In a normal and uneventful day, you will hear clients who are short with you, abrupt, have a negative tone, interrupt you, and when you're talking, raise their voice and get frustrated. All of this is okay. Always maintain the same level of quality customer service and professionalism no matter how the client behaves. Our clients experience a lot of what ifs we will never know about. Perhaps their child got in trouble at a school that morning. A car broke down on the way to work. Maybe they're out of their necessary medication. They could have no support from family or experience mental health issues. We are here because of the clients, not despite them. Now let's talk about when and how to set boundaries. When was a time when you were an upset customer and trying to get a problem resolved? How were you treated? Now let's just think about that. You can pause the video and just think about how you were treated when you were an upset caller or a customer. All right, and now what is your goal when you speak to a difficult client? And how does it feel when you successfully calm a difficult client? So your goal is to de-escalate the call and end the call on a good note. Yeah, that is always going to be your goal. Now, is that always going to be the case? Probably not. And now, how does it feel when you successfully calm a difficult client? I'm sure it feels good. Even if you weren't able to provide that person with any referrals, or even if that person wasn't able to really get any type of help at all, right? You still were able to accomplish something. You were able to build trust, and you were able to end the call on a good note, and maybe even able to get that person to smile before getting off the phone. So let's just talk about handling bad calls. You want to recognize the yellow caution flags of upset clients and picture yourself in their situation. Acknowledge that none of the client's behavior and/or statements are directed to you, and know that you do not need to become emotionally invested. Take the instinct to respond defensively or negatively and set it aside the same way you would put junk email into a junk folder. The client's message isn't addressed to you. Don't try to be right with a struggling client. Continue the dance of guiding and flexibility, even when they've changed the music. When the bad calls end, let it go and move onward. They aren't your problem anymore. When experiencing a difficult situation, what factors can impact a person's coping skills? When experiencing a difficult situation, what factors can impact a person's coping skills? So, mental health, social status, education, and then also support system. Saida continually expresses how much she hates dealing with agencies. She's over all of it and doesn't care anymore if the power is cut off and she's kicked out of her home. She hates everyone in social services and wishes they all get sick and die. How do you remain professional with Saida while still leaving a good professional impression? A. Apologize that she's had such a bad experience and reiterate how you'd very much like to help her. B. Agree with Saida. Admit that a lot of agencies are difficult to deal with and tell her to jump through the hoops as best as she can. C. Explain to her that most of the system is like this and she'll need to develop a thick skin. Luckily, you're one of the nice ones. And D. Let Saida know she's not alone in her belief, but assure her you're here to help. So the best answer will be A. Apologize that she's had such a bad experience and reiterate how you'd very much like to help her. Alright, and now let's role play. Betty Lou has been at this longer than you've been with 211. She knows the drill. Get the numbers, call the places, and be told no. She's fucking tired of it and is sick of talking to bitches at DSS. So let's go ahead and talk about this call. How are you going to take this call? Are you going to be offended that she's throwing the F-bomb and the B-bomb and she doesn't care and she probably has a bad attitude? Don't be. Because at the end of the day, she's not cursing at you. She's mad, she's frustrated, and it's okay to be, right? You don't know what she's been through, but you know that many of these callers go through it all day, every day. So you can completely understand her struggle. So the best thing to do is to empathize with the caller and be compassionate and let her know that you understand and you're here to help. Next, let's talk about a difficult client. A difficult client is one who uses unprofessional language to the extent you cannot communicate with the client and therefore cannot help them. Keep in mind, generalized cursing about a situation is not the same thing as a client cursing at you. For some, cursing relieves stress. Here are some red flags. name calling at you, racist, vulgar, or sexist language. So if a client on the phone is cursing directly at you, using racist, vulgar, or sexist language, or is calling you out of your name, then this is what is considered a difficult client. Now let's talk about the steps, the 3-step guide for handling an identified difficult client. First, a soft warning. Acknowledge the undesirable behavior and make it clear you are there to help. Let's keep this conversation professional so I can help you. A second request, make it clear the client is reaching the limit of your ability to provide help. I would still like to help you, so let's keep the conversation professional, or if you'd like, I can call you later with resources. Otherwise, I'll have to disconnect the call. And then 3, the last warning, show the boundary directly. Thank you for calling 211, Virginia. When you're ready, we'll be glad to help you. I'm disconnecting this call. Keep in mind that disconnecting a call is not a win, but a last step in acknowledging an inability to help the client where they're at. So let's talk about your boundaries in your personal and professional life. Are your boundaries different in your personal life from your professional life? And should they be? And how would it feel to have a negative call with a client and not be affected emotionally afterwards? Think about these questions and we'll definitely come back to these. Now let's practice. This is the last time Marcus deals with 211 or anyone else. No one knows anything and you're just as stupid as the rest of them. He says, you must be another one of those idiots told to answer the phones, but you can't really do anything to help. How might you set a clear boundary with Marcus while still remaining professionally and emotionally uninvested? A. Agree with Marcus. You are sure he's had some bad experiences, but you promise that you're different. B. Let Marcus know that you're willing to help, but would like if he could stop talking bad about others in your profession. C. Acknowledge Marcus's bad experiences, but push forward with trying to help him today. And D. Inform him that he doesn't have to call all of the agencies and that asking for help from these places is always his choice. What is the best answer? That would be C. Acknowledge Marcus's bad experiences, but push forward with trying to help him today. And here are some last thoughts and questions. Remember, each client interaction is a fluid dance where you guide with flexibility and know how and when to set boundaries. With all that you've learned today, how might you benefit from adjusting how you interact with clients? And how might you interact with your clients differently going forward? All right, well, if you have any questions and concerns, feel free to contact your supervisor or your coach. Thank you.